The first of 3 games released on December 14th is yet another coin-op shooter. Atomic Robo-Kid was originally released to arcades in 1988, and found its way to a half-dozen consoles and computers in the subsequent years. Robo-Kid is unlike any shooter thus far on the Mega Drive. It doesn't feature forced scrolling. The Kid has full 360-degree movement and can scroll the levels in all 4 directions, assuming the current level allows it. Another twist on the formula is the branching paths. Each level in the game is relatively short and always ends with a doorway or 2 to enter. This setup keeps the game from getting boring at first, but there really isn't enough variety here to make good use of the feature in the long run. Atomic Robo-Kid is the first appearance on the Genesis by the infamous Micronics development studio. None of us even knew of its existence back in the day, though nowadays anyone interested in video game history has probably at least heard the name. This contract studio is responsible for dozens of NES games, mostly ports of other studios' arcade games like Capcom's 1942, Taito's Elevator Action, and SNK's Ikari Warriors. Micronics was notorious for terrible games filled with graphic glitches, awful slowdown, and just all-around shoddy workmanship. It's weird then that its first crack at the Mega Drive actually turned out pretty okay. I mean, at least relative to Micronics' normal standards. In fact, the game looks and plays very similarly to the arcade original. And in Micronics' defense, most of the rough bits in Atomic Robo-Kid were present in the arcade version as well. Atomic Robo-Kid was a product of UPL Corporation, which was a subsidiary of Universal Games, also known as Aru's Corporation. Universal's main claim to fame was the Mr. Do series, a Dig Dug style chase game that spawned multiple sequels. UPL is credited with the 4th game in the series, Do Run Run. Universal Games' other big title was Space Panic, considered by some the grandfather of the platforming genre, having predated Nintendo's Donkey Kong by about a year. Atomic Robo-Kid is a neat idea, and does a lot of things right. Even the bosses are pretty impressive, filling large areas of the screen, each one being followed by a unique one-on-one duel with another Robo-Kid-sized robot. But the free scrolling tends to cause more problems than it's worth. As this is an older game, enemies reappear almost every time their spawn points come back on screen, meaning having to backtrack a bit will usually end in the Kid surrounded by enemies on all sides. What really puts a damper on the whole thing, though, is the absolutely infuriating power-up system. Every now and then a gem will be dropped, which can be shot so that it cycles from one weapon or upgrade to the next. The problem is that the power-up which will appear is completely random, and if you happen to need a particular weapon, it's not unheard of to sit in one spot juggling a power-up gem for what feels like an eternity, praying to land on the proper icon. Having said that, amassing a full arsenal of weapons in Robo-Kid can feel pretty great. In later levels, there are loads of sections that obviously call for very specific guns, and figuring out which one to use where is a lot of fun. In late 1990, Nintendo still had a stranglehold on third-party licensees, and Atomic Robo-Kid appears to be an early example of a publisher sidestepping Nintendo's wrath by releasing games under a different name. This is the first game released by Treco, which was a subsidiary of Sammy Corporation, which had been releasing NES games for a few years by this point. This is also significant because 14 years later, Sega and Sammy would merge to form Sega-Sammy Holdings.